Hello, this is Storm Warden coming back at you today with another video update. And actually, today is going to be a little bit different of a video. Today, we're going to talk about the aftermath of Hurricane Helene and the impacts that it brought to the southeast as a whole. I gathered as much data as I could to give you guys a really detailed video, so just bear with me on this. I was looking for a lot of different graphics and things, but there's some things that I couldn't find. So I did my best here trying to find things that I could. But we're gonna give you guys a really detailed video today on the aftermath of Helene, which brought significant impacts to the southeast and brought devastating impacts to western North Carolina with a historical flash flooding event that has sadly taken the lives of many people. So we're going to talk all about that today. If you like my weather content, please subscribe. A tradition on my channel, guys, is that I like to come back and do a forecast verification, and I like to do an overview after storms have happened. Just so that you guys are with me on this journey of meteorology as I'm going to school, getting my degree, and as I'm learning these things. I want you guys to learn with me. So through my predictions on the videos, I want to come back and talk about all the errors in the forecast and we're gonna talk all about that. So without talking in circles too much, we're gonna get right into this. So looking at Helene, you can see here satellite imagery, which basically shows us the track, the path, and it shows us Helene. And one thing that you can take note of is just how large of a system this was. This system covered many areas. Another thing you're probably looking at is that the track looks a little bit further east. And I think, or at least for some people, they say it caught them off guard because the system was actually forecast to track through Atlanta, through Georgia, but things shifted east. And when you're tracking tropical systems and hurricanes, weird things happen. Especially when it comes to the track, and especially when it comes to making landfall. We kind of saw this with Milton, where things deviated and looked like it was going to make a beeline for Tampa, but generally it made landfall just south of Tampa. So these tropical systems have a weird way of moving themselves, but overall the National Hurricane Center did a great job with the track of this system. There was a little bit of error there with the forecast landfall, which was further east, which is what I was forecasting. I kind of thought this thing was going to go further east, and I'll tell you why here in a few minutes. But generally speaking, this system was very devastating to all of those in the southeast, but particularly western North Carolina. So up here, we're reading, and it says Helene's largest impacts were across the southern Appalachias, where widespread, severe, and unprecedented flooding occurred with hundreds of fatalities and billions in property damage. So, the Western Carolinas, they experience a once in a lifetime an event. You don't typically see these huge rainfall events happen this frequently, but what happened was you had rainfall well ahead of Helene making landfall, which is what we call a pre. We call that a pre-rainfall event. And what happened was you had a stall front right up in here, which so without getting too meteorological, when you guys, I actually want you guys to understand what I'm talking about. You had a lot of things that would support heavy rainfall. You had a front in play. You had a couple other factors as well. You had like a high pressure over here, kind of the squeeze play. You had a lot of different things that were helping to steer or create a huge rainfall event, and were helping to steer Helene right towards the southern Appalachians. So, and another thing is that Helene actually did this weird circular or this U-turn, and you kind of had this thing run into the southern Appalachians, and then it made a U-turn into the upper level low that was located back over here, which I think overall had this system, which is what made this system be a little bit further east than forecast and first thought, because what you had was you had upper level low that was located over the western areas of Arkansas, and then this thing, as it trended a little bit weaker, this system trended a little bit more east, and so with that, you had a further east track, and it's also brought the worst case scenario to the North Carolina mountains. Sadly, also Florida experienced significant damage as well because this storm, it approached them as a Cat 4 hurricane. So this brought damaging winds and rainfall through Florida, particularly the eastern panhandle to southeastern Georgia. So this brought significant rainfall and wind to those areas as well. Now, looking at the graphics for Helene, which let me scroll down and make sure. Oh, I'll come back to that. So looking at the graphics for Helene, and you can kind of see how the track was, and I'll replay this for you. So I'll stop it right here. So what we had a system that started out over here in the Caribbean. A couple things that were going for this system. One being very warm waters over the Gulf of Mexico. I mean, you had water so explosive that a Cat 4, Cat 5 was definitely on the table, which we saw a Cat 4. You also had low wind shear, and you had some dry over top, but particularly the environment was quite favorable. So we're going to keep going with the loop. And you can kind of see how our first hurricane warnings and tropical storm warnings first occurred on Tuesday, September 24th. This is when we all knew that, oh yeah, we're going to have a big storm coming, but how strong is this going to be? That was the biggest question that we had from the get-go. So we're going through time, we're getting to our Wednesday. This is when Helene really started to intensify. This is when forecasters started to get worried. This is when, everybody was on their tippy toes because, at this point, things were looking dangerous. Now we're going through time, and you can see how Helene just really started to expand and get huge as we went longer or deeper into the time frame. You can kind of see how Helene really started to expand. You can see how far the tropical storm force winds really extended because this area of yellow is where all our tropical storm force winds were at. So look how huge that was, and it's only going to get bigger, and you'll see that as we continue to go further in time. And let's look at that. I mean, the tropical storm force winds cover all of Florida and pretty much the southern half of Georgia. So this was a huge system, and this is why, so many people experienced damaging conditions because of how huge this system was on both the left and right side. Typically with these hurricanes, we see these lopsided systems that only on the eastern side you're seeing the strongest conditions. But Helene was a different monster because this system was large on both sides. So we weren't just looking at a lopsided sheared system upon landfall. We were looking at a full-fledged hurricane that was huge and expanding size, one that we haven't seen in years. Because typically, like I said, we only see lopsided systems because typically we have shear and gyre that tears apart the western side, and this causes the eastern side to be the most heaviest part of the system. But Helene was a different beast. So we're going through time. Just look at that. I mean, it expands even more to the point where most of Georgia is in the tropical storm force winds, as well as South Carolina. So the tropical storm force wind field was absolutely enormous, and so this just speaks to all the damaging winds. And you see the little red area. Look at those hurricane force winds that track through the southeastern Georgia. And this is what brought the catastrophic damage to the trees down here in this area that pretty much took away everybody's power for at least a week to almost a week and a half for some folks. This was a damaging storm for the southeast. And we're still going through time. And just look at that. Now, obviously, the storm starts to weaken. This wind field is going to start to shrink. And that's what happened. But you can see tropical storm force winds still took place over the southern Appalachia. So on top of the damaging devastating rainfall event that happened in the southern Appalachias, you also had a damaging wind event, which took down a lot of trees. I mean, there's so many trees down right now. And we talked about this yesterday in my video, how wildfire risk could increase if we continue to have dry conditions from all the trees that have fallen from Helene. So, overall, guys, this was a major system. I actually want to go back a little. Hold on, let's do this. So this was the end track of the system. This is the track of the system. You can kind of see how there was a westward or eastward, might I say, eastward deviation in the track, and more than likely has something to do with this upper level low that was over here that kind of pushed this system further east, which to me is no surprise because Debbie did the same thing where it was forecasted to be further west, but it ended up verifying further east. And I think this is what caught some people off guard, particularly in South Carolina, where you had damaging winds that pretty much destroyed every tree in its path. You had a huge damaging wind event in South Carolina. So overall, guys, this was a major system. You know, and looking at some of the National Weather Service forecast discussions, we'll start off with Tallahassee. And this is just some of the discussions that I pulled, which just talks about Helene. And you can see here, issued at 3:54 p.m. This was Tuesday, September 24th. And the focus will be on the approaching Tropical Storm Helene, which is expected to become a hurricane or a major hurricane prior to landfall somewhere along the Florida Panhandle or Big Bend. So, like I said before, once you saw this system starting to develop in the Caribbean, we kind of knew that things are going to get bad. We kind of knew that, oh, okay, this is going to be the one to watch. And so by Tuesday, the 24th of September, we already knew that this is going to be a bigger system. And so, and I know there's some people out there that have said things like, "Oh, they didn't know it's gonna be this bad," or, forecasters were certainly forecasting a major system days prior of landfall. This is Tuesday. This storm didn't make landfall till Thursday. You can see our trackless system, which had an eastward deviation to it due to our upper level low, and so you can kind of see how this would catch some people off guard, especially since, because the system was so big, these small little deviations in the track, could mean that more areas were impacted, especially into South Carolina and North Carolina. Now, looking at a forecast discussion from the Greensville, Spartanburg area, you can see how, I'll read some of this for you. Major rainfall event for the southern Appalachians in the vicinity with potential for widespread flash flooding. The predecessor rainfall event will be coming to an end by the beginning portions of the forecast period as the initial tropical rain bands from Hurricane Helene begins to move in from the south, as Helene will be in the midst of making landfall of a major hurricane near the Big Bend of Florida Thursday evening. Large amounts of rainfall will have already fallen across the Blue Ridge Escarpment, southeast-facing slopes, western upstate South Carolina, and northeast Georgia, sandwiched between a closed upper low, over the mid Mississippi Valley, and upper anticyclone over the western Atlantic, will inadvertently slingshot Helene into the southeast Thursday night before the storm takes on a more western track as the closed upper low overtakes the track by Friday afternoon. The heaviest rainfall rates will be within the tropical rain bands, and with already rising streams, creeks, and rivers, expect for significant flash flooding to take place in locations that will get hammered by the in the near-term forecast. And so you can see here they had really serious language for this system. They can see here down to the bottom, it says that this was forecasted to see river floods that rival 1995 Tropical Cyclone Jerry, which brought severe flooding to the southern Appalachians. So you can kind of see how the National Weather Service in Greenville, Spartanburg did a really great job at forecasting this to be, just a once-in-a-lifetime type of event. They had serious language, and you can kind of see here at the bottom where it says damaging debris flows and slope failures as well. So, this wasn't a system to play around with. And even though they had this really serious language, it really turned out to be, once in a lifetime type of event, which ultimately ended up, the death toll it topped 300 lives. So overall, Helene was a system that's probably going to be retired, for the simple fact that this was just a once in a lifetime rain event for southern North Carolina. Southern Appalachia. So, you can kind of see how this system was just really, really devastating. And this is my Twitter account, DJ Robinson_WX. You can follow that if you want. But I'm just showing you this to show you just some of the forecast models a couple of days prior. You can see how the GFS had that Cat 3 hurricane making landfall in the Panhandle. And this is just some of the forecast models that we were looking at. And, here's a Euro model forecasting, borderline Cat 2 hurricane to make landfall or strong Cat 1 hurricane. Here's another model on the Icon model. So, this is just giving us an idea of what the models look like days prior before Helene made landfall. And again, going back to the overview, Helene, it made landfall on September 26th, which I believe was that Thursday. And it brought, devastating impacts to the southeast. And, here's a forecast. National Weather Service in Wilmington, which also experienced impacts. And so I'm showing you this because I'm just trying to the overall just the width of Hurricane Helene all the way over in the National Weather Service in Wilmington, which if you don't know, that's down on the North Carolina coast. And that it brought up almost to 4 inches of rainfall and 60-mile-an-hour gusts all the way at the coast of North Carolina. So this is going to show you that even though this system was well west of Wilmington, all the way towards just along the southern Alps, this system still brought impacts well over to the Wilmington, North Carolina area. So overall, guys, Helene was a huge system that brought life-altering impacts, and sadly has taken a lot of lives. But this is my overview of Helene. Again, probably not my longest video. I probably could have found more data, but again, I just want to give you guys an overview of how things pretty much verify, and just give you an overview of what really happened here. And you can just see here's another look at that satellite imagery, and Helene was a beast, man. It was a beast. But I will be back at you guys on another video, probably doing a Hurricane Milton review at some point. I'll probably talk about something else tomorrow. We do have a pretty big front forecasted towards the end of the month, which I'll probably talk about that tomorrow. But generally speaking, guys, Helene was a record-breaking system that's probably going to be retired when we actually do when the National Hurricane Center does an actual overview, and they go back and they do some forecast verification. This is probably going to get retired. So prayers are out to all those who were affected. But that's all I got for you guys today, and I'll be back at you tomorrow with another video.